Hello and a happy Friday to you. How was your Easter celebration? I hope you had a blessed time and that you were able to celebrate the resurrection holiday with friends and family. I hope too that your week since the long weekend has been fruitful. I had the uncommon pleasure of spending my Easter vacation at our country home in what we refer to in Nigeria, where I am at, as the village, away from the hustle and bustle of city life. And I want to assure you that there is nothing like the serenity of village life. I therefore have the added pleasure of calling this my village episode and welcome you to episode 62 of Ask Pastor Nike. My name is Nike Ayola. A couple of weeks back, I saw an article online that piqued my interest. I shared it with the members of a few groups that I belong to and asked for their individual opinions on the matters raised in it. And you know what? I got a few interesting responses and lots of agreements, particularly from older married women for whom it is their reality. The question I'm being asked to tackle did not arise from this article. In fact, it's a question that has been asked many times over by some perplexed husbands and maybe including mine as well. I believe it's a conversation that's been long overdue and that the Spirit of God is truly wanting to help us unravel some of the truths embedded in the nature of this enigma called woman. I also believe that this episode is poised to become a time of discovery for the men particularly and for we women too, as we consider this question that is a cry of the hearts of many husbands. My wife has changed. She's become impossible to deal with. What can I do? Now, the first thing I would love to do is read the article I made reference to in its entirety and also read one of the more poignant responses to my query about whether the author was right. Unfortunately, the article didn't carry the name of the author, but whoever he or she is, I want to thank them for making our creative juices flow. Now, I did a little tweaking here and there just for the purpose of a smooth reading, but I guarantee that you'll find this both interesting and eye-opening, right from the title of the piece, which says, Men should prepare themselves to handle women who are over 40. And now to the article itself. When some women turn 40 or 50 years, something major shifts in their personality. They become bolder, more rebellious, more religious, more focused, more opinionated, and more emphatic about what they want. Don't be surprised when a previously obedient and submissive woman on turning 40 or 50 changes completely, most especially when she has given birth to children. At this age, she might not go with the flow anymore and may begin to ask questions like, is sex food? She might also begin to query some of your instructions and even the way you behave. She will also become more outspoken and will not be afraid to speak her mind. If care is not taken, you may have to begin to do some things for yourself that you weren't doing before, like your laundry or taking your own clothes to the dry cleaner or preparing food to eat, because it might take her more time before she responds to your requests. There is something definitely special about turning 40 and or 50 for women. If she has never challenged or questioned your instructions, get ready to be shocked by her boldness and confrontational attitude. The only way to avoid total breakdown of peace and harmony in the home is for men to become fair, objective, and reasonable in their approaches and demands to issues at home and or at work. Men should bear in mind that at this age, women also harbor lots of regrets about the decisions and choices they have made in life so far, and who their husbands are may be one of such. A woman at this age is a better judge of character and will evaluate a man using very different and sometimes weird parameters. Men must start on time to prepare for this phase in the lives of their wives, business partners, bosses, and even subordinates. And what you put in is what you get. If you have treated her fairly, then you don't have anything to worry about. She will begin to appreciate you better if for any reason she didn't do so in the past. On the contrary, if you haven't been nice to her, fasten your seatbelt. The ride is about to get pretty bumpy. A woman doesn't forget those who hurt her, and by her actions and utterances, you will know that she's out to show you that she is no longer that little girl that you married. Wow, there's a lot packed into that brief article, don't you think? Like I mentioned earlier, I also want to read a response that I believe is spot on from one of my aburos who is a member of the medical community, Doyin Afonja. And by the way, aburo is a Yoruba word for a younger family member, for those who may not know. This is her response. I believe it's usually because of reducing estrogen hormones. When estrogen decreases, the androgen hormones like testosterone become dominant. The effects of this change include clearer thinking, becoming more logical and less emotional, and not so averse to taking risks. This is why menopausal women are more likely to initiate a divorce. The writer did well by stating that if the husband had treated the wife well, then he has no need to worry. This is because women are also quite objective and appreciative at this point. And even though they may have regrets, women at this age also count their blessings more and hold on to anything that is of value. Really, it's important for both men and women to be aware of these possible shifts in personality. Okay, I believe this is just the beginning of a series, and going forward, I would like to emphasize a few things that were mentioned in the article. But let's begin with one of the points raised that drew me in right from the start, where that article says they become bolder, more rebellious, more religious, more focused, more opinionated, and more emphatic about what they want. Don't be surprised when a previously obedient and submissive woman, on turning 40 or 50, changes completely, most especially when she has given birth to children. At the beginning of the first video in the series of my last episode about personal growth, I mentioned that change is a part of life. Whatever remains static or the same throughout its lifetime cannot be a living thing. All things living must necessarily pass through the process of birth, growth, maturity, and eventually death. And even at each stage, take for example birth, the fertilized egg of the human species goes through several transitions before it's ready to be born. Don't we all think then that it is somehow not right to expect anyone to remain the same way they were when you married them 10, 20, 30, or 50 years ago? It actually is disingenuous to imagine that maybe the docile, acquiescent young lady you married will forever remain like that. With education, increased knowledge and exposure, wisdom and maturity, and a host of tools available to all of us that you yourself have utilized to get you to where you are. It's heartbreaking to recall the number of marriages that have crashed, and even some spouses who have murdered their partners because one person can't understand how years, education, and maturity have given the other person a voice. Or haven't you ever wondered how and why many women, including wives of celebrated authority figures, with even a handful of the leadership in the church thrown in, have chosen to walk away from their marriages despite what appears to the rest of the world as thriving or at least okay relationships? Honestly, it is disingenuous to expect a woman, whether she was educated before or after she got married to you, to be untouched, unaffected, or moved by all the different experiences she's had, especially with childbirth and raising the children. A few men even treat their wives like their children, under the cover of being the head. They talk down at them, issue instructions and orders to them, and command their compliance like they would do to their kids. So, let's assume that you, as a man, paved the way of your wife through college or even high school, just like you would do for your child. Wouldn't it be normal for the parent to expect that the child, even though grateful, would then utilize the education in such a way that it is beneficial to both their present and future? Why then would anyone imagine that a woman, an adult for that matter, with exposure and years of maturity, will not desire better and demand that she has an input in the life that she's living and the direction her future is taking? It's not about whether we like it or think it's fair or not. But the capacity to absorb pain and live with discomfort is very great in most women. And many of them simply beat their time, sometimes until when their children are grown or when they have a measure of financial muscle to react to some of the injustices that they have lived through by becoming bolder, more rebellious, more religious, more focused, more opinionated, more emphatic, and insisting on how they want to live and react. And I love the qualification of those actions because the more implies that these traits were not totally absent in some women previously. I'm sure you'll agree with me that there is a whole lot more about this conversation that we still need and we're going to be having. Next Friday, I would like us to explore the angle of the role of hormones in the determination of our emotions and reactions, and how God and His Word, the Bible, dictate all of this. Now, I'm sure some of us have strong opinions about what I've said already, as well as where you sense or think this conversation is headed. But you have my promise that this is beyond an academic exercise. As I assure you all once again that the focus of this channel is on the truth based on the scriptures and the promptings of the Holy Spirit. So please feel free to leave your views in the comment section, and remember to like and share this video and my other videos with your friends and family. I'm excitedly looking forward to connecting with you all again next Friday. May the Lord take your hand and lead you to blessings. Shalom.